So hi everybody and welcome back to C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 280 and in this video we talk about the copy constructor. But before we start talking about the syntax here, let's go here to the examples and you can see what they are doing. Here they are creating an object with the type A. The type A is a struct here defined as A, and you can see it has a variable, a constructor, and that is the new thing. It has also a copy constructor. The question is now why we have never seen a copy constructor till now, and the answer is because we have never defined it till now, but the compiler have created all time a copy constructor behind the scene, which means implicit creation when we needed it. And we needed this copy constructor actually in many places, which we will discuss later. And so let's see what happens here again. So first of all, we create an object, they call it here A1, of type A with the argument 7, which is just this, calling this copy constructor, and the initializer is assigning this one. So here we have created an object. Nice. But now we want to copy this object, and in my last video I said there are different ways actually you can copy values from one class to another, and in this case they are using the copy constructor, and look how easy that looks. You just create another object, so you can see they are creating here A2 again with the same type A, and then they are passing the already created object here as an argument here, and that's it. So easy. They have copied all the values from A1, which is now here, to here, and which, with other words, when we looked here the struct again and look here this copy constructor, you can see what happens. Actually it is just like a constructor. You can see it's really similar. It starts with A, and then here is the reference of the object. It must be again of the same type. That's very important here in this case. You can see because this one is the same type, we can just take it from here and then assign it directly with the initializer list, which we already know. It takes here an and assign it here, and this is the way how the copy constructor is assigning values. But very important note here as well, you have not to use this one. You can also use the body, of course. This one is just using here the initializer list. All right, with that said, we can dive into the syntax, and now the syntax is very easy because I already described it more or less. We start with the class name. Why the class name? Because the copy constructor is also a constructor, and the constructor starts all time with the class name what we are. So you can see it here. We are here in struct A, so A is our indicator that this is a constructor, and now we have only to distinguish what kind of constructor, because we already know the normal constructor, and this one is the copy constructor. All right, then we have this parameter list here, and the parameter list, you can read it here on top, can look like this, but important is this parameter list must contain at least one reference of itself. So something like this one, T reference or const T reference or so on, older version. But important, it must be at least one there, and then it can have here more other parameters which have to have default values. All right, and here this is an example. For example, this is a standard example when you pass pass an object as an argument, then you can pass it as a reference or by value. We know these two kinds, but these two kinds are very important to distinguish later also, because we have to talk about later in detail more, but not right now. So this one here, you can see, is called here the typical declaration of a copy constructor. This one, and when we see the example here down, you can see we start with the name. Here is this one it must have a reference to itself, because like in this example we take an already created object, and this object has the same type. That's why we have the self-reference here, and then we put it in here. You can see where you put it in, and then I can just assign here the values directly in an initializer list or in the body here later. Here the values one by one, so member wise. All right, that's very nice. And let's go here a little bit to the other syntax here, and the other syntax you already know as well, because we already talked about the default word, keyword and the delayed. But let's read what happens here with the copy constructor first. So it says here, forcing a copy constructor to be generated by the compiler when we use default. And this is similar to the default constructor, because if you set default here, let's say in this example again, if I create here again another constructor here additional to this one and set it like with the equal default sign, then I have two copy constructor. One, this one is user defined, which I have created, and the other one, this one here, would be my normally implicitly created copy constructor by the compiler, and I have to force it. But the question is now, wait a minute, why it is saying forcing? Because normally when you are providing a user-defined copy constructor, the compiler will not create an implicit constructor, an implicit default constructor, and that's why you are saying you have to create one, even if I have provided a user-defined constructor, because this user-defined constructor can look really different. We can add here more parameters, make strange copies, assignments later in this body or something like that. All right, and then you say I still want an alternative, which is the standard implicitly created copy constructor. That's why we can use the default. So, and let's go here to the number 3 syntax, which is, it says here, avoiding implicit generation of the copy constructor. Yes, when we delete a constructor, it means just you are not allowed to use it. And here, when you delete, for example, the constructor, important here is it is just deleting the implicitly generated constructor. For example, if we have this line now here in our example down, this one will still work. It is just forcing not to create this implicit one. Or if you don't have this one and you have this line here, then you are saying to the object you are not allowed to be copied. So with other words, if this is not existing, we have delayed the implicit generated constructor and we try something like that, this will give us a an error, because now I have this one, for example, deleted. All right, and this is so the start point where what we have to understand. It's very easy, actually, not difficult, but we will talk a little bit more about some special things which are important in the next video. But before that, I want that you read just this one, because I will not go into this one. This is just explanation about implicit declare copy constructor. You read this one and try to understand this. And then the deleted implicitly declared copy constructor. This is the things what we have here on top. How this works a little bit more in detail, and then what a trial copy constructor is, and then this eligible copy constructor, and so on. You read all this kind of stuff, try to understand it as good as you can, and research a little bit, then you know even it more than me. But here in the implicit defined copy constructor, we will talk a little bit more, because this one is a little bit interesting. And and I will point out, and so in the next video we will talk about these examples more in detail, and then I will explain some more key points, what we have to consider. And then there is also something like this shallow copy, which I mentioned in my last video, and deep copy. This is also a very specific topic, which we will probably need a separate video, but this will also come later when we talk a little bit about this user-defined copy constructor. So this is for this video. In the next video we will continue here a little bit. And if you have so far questions, like all time, write it in the comment section. See you in the next video. Bye, good luck, and like all time, have fun and never give up.